All right, we are live. We are good. Um, we are at 2018. Maybe by the time this is done, we won't
Mm.
have all the 2022 games to rank. But then again, if you wanted to hold off for a few months, come back at the beginning of 2022, you know, you can talk all about Nintendo Switch Sports and
Yeah,
Kirby the Vor game
I could
and
talk about Rocket League, but with people. I don't know why people haven't thought of this before.
yeah, Rocket League with people. They made two Rocket Leagues with people that are coming out within 2 months. One of which supports one of the accessories that they already made for Ring Fit, and
Yeah,
overproduced because they were supply limited not by the leg straps, but by the ring con.
yeah.
By the time that this is done, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe will have sold another 3 million units. Yeah, you don't say. This is like the DLC, aka the final push to get anyone who didn't buy the Switch version because they owned the Wii U version still to finally just go ahead and buy the Switch version. Also, a safety net for all the work that they've been doing on Mario Kart Tour for when Mario Kart Tour gets shut off in a few years.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be somewhere for it to go.
Like
That's for sure.
all of the under commented on thing, almost every track that they're going to put into this DLC has already been remastered for tour.
Yeah, I have to say it's I hardly this is no digital foundry freeze frame and
Mm-hmm.
kind of really break this thing down, but all the tracks didn't really look to me like they had the same aesthetic quality as the Mario Kart 8 stuff. It just looked
We're putting
a
in all the tour content, but whereas in Mario Kart Tour it costs $40 to get Diddy Kong, here it takes $25 to get to double the amount of content.
Yeah, I mean, it's still on that basis. You can see, certainly I feel like I'm bound to get plenty of use out of it. It certainly is
I
a lot
mean,
of tracks and stuff, but yeah, it does seem like it's kind of a repurposing element at work
yes,
because it
let's
just doesn't
salvage
quite
what we
fit in.
have.
Doesn't fit. I guess we'll see when they come. It's not long. The first wave is in March, and it just
Yes.
kind of seems to me like it's like yeah, like obviously there was one track that was shown that was literally from tour, but then the other ones that you could recognize from other Mario Kart games, they also look. They just looked much more. There's the one that's set in the sky. I assume it's like
Yes.
from the Mario Kart Super Circuit levels that are set in the sky.
I think so,
Uh,
yeah.
and you kind of compare that to the one in Mario Kart 8 that already exists that's set in the sky with the airship and all that. And it's just, to me, very superficial eye test type of stuff. But it's just like this, it does not look as lavish, as
Yeah.
polished. But,
Here's what I'll say is anyone who subscribes to the Nintendo Mobile YouTube channel got 18 Mario Kart Tour videos in your subscriptions in the same minute last night. 18 of them. So that's where Mario Kart Tour is at, and we can begin by asking you to rate from 1 to 10 Dragon Quest Builders on Switch.
yeah, I've not played this. It seems like it mostly kind of got a pretty good reception in terms of like clearly there's kind of impetus behind it seemingly of like hey we could do something that's somewhat in the vein of Minecraft but the kind of it seems like they did put their own significant sort of spin on it and kind of tied it into like original Dragon Quest lore by the whole thing
Oh
of like
yeah, it's
it's if you
hilarious.
choose the bad like ending or
Yep, no,
whatever, this is what happens.
it's great. What I will say is that by the time Nintendo brought out Dragon Quest Builders on Switch, 2 was almost already out on all the other platforms.
Yeah, man.
And 2 is a much better game because Dragon Quest Builders is chapter based, and you might make the understandable mistake in chapter 1 of putting a lot of effort into what you're building and getting acquainted and like building houses and structures. I think go to chapter 2 and it deletes all that shit. Because in Dragon Quest Builders 1, your work does not transfer chapter to chapter at all. So you restart everything every chapter. So Dragon Quest Builders 2 fixes that.
Yeah, so I was thinking you just instinctively on this one, it's for either a 7 or an 8. I'm kind of leaning a 7, I think.
That sounds right, and
Got it.
if you're thinking 7 and 8 for the concept, I might give the 8 to 2.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where it kind of balanced out for me.
Yep. All right. What about Bayonetta 1 again? Are we giving it the same 8 and 9?
Yeah, I think so. 8 for the original, 9 for 2. I don't
Okay.
think the Switch versions really changed anything about those scores.
Kirby Star Allies.
Yeah, I've not played this. Did not get around to it, even though I certainly enjoyed the sort of preceding games in this lineage. But it's just a somewhat of a timing thing, and somewhat like the reception was a little bit cooler. It felt to me than like a Robobot. And obviously, I had played 3 of those games. I mean, not like super close together, but it just didn't feel like an urgent pickup. And then it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. So yeah, I don't have the kind of experience to draw on to give this a really firm rating. So I think a 7 is probably where I'm going to have to go with it. That sort of somewhat non-committal.
Okay.
But
all right, now on to all the Switch games you liked, such as Nintendo Labo Toycon 01 Variety Kit.
Yeah, so this is kind of where you have the like build it the little sort of car like thing, where you put a Joy-Con in a little cardboard thing and it kind of vibrates along or whatever. Like, is that the variety kit?
So there's...
I didn't have any of them, so I might not have this trait.
So, let me pull up exactly what was in the Labo Variety Kit. So, there are 5 different things to build. I had all of them except for 02, which was the robot, because that seemed like the worst one by far to me.
It's very like involved, that one, seemingly for
Yes.
for what payoff, I guess, is the real question.
So there is a Toycon, because all of these are called Toycon, of course, officially. Get the branding right. Toycon RC car, which is what it is. You put, it is very, very, very minimal. You put 2 Joy-Con on it and it vibrates along a table in a direction. Fishing rod, where you build a fishing rod and like it clicks and it has motion sensing, and you literally put the switch in Tate mode in a holder that's connected to this fishing rod, and you move it side to side, up and down, and you crank the crank to catch fish. There is Toycon Motorbike, where you make motorbike handles, and that has Mario Kart 8 Deluxe functionality, where you can use that to steer.
Yeah.
And there is Toycon House, which is the weirdest of all of them.
I do remember the house.
Where you shove your Switch into a house that has some buttons and cranks, and you hit them, and just weird shit happens on the screen, and that's the experience. And,
is the piano in this one?
Yes, and then this is also the piano, which is by far the most interesting and the most, like, wildly ambitious. I built the piano, and it fucking works shockingly well. And there are a couple of rhythm games that patched themselves to support the piano. Like third-party games that were like, fuck it, why not? But this will get us a news story.
Yeah.
Together, this was $70 in the US, but for 5 projects, the building is fun. The tutorials are really good. The projects take between like 30 minutes and 2.5 hours to build.
Right.
And then you have them, and then you play with them, and then they're fun, but there's not a ton of staying power.
Yeah, I guess a fair bit of the appeal probably is in the construction, especially if it's something you could like an activity you could do with somebody, like a multiple person type of thing. Probably is the most rewarding use case I could imagine for this kind of stuff. Yeah, tough to score, especially considering it's even among the constituent parts here. It's like, well, we've got the piano on the one hand, and then we've got
The
some of
house
this
and the
other
RC
stuff.
car on the low end.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
I
I
would
mean,
say motorbike and fishing are like mid tier. They're pretty fun. Like they are game activities. They're things to do. The software is neat. Piano's great. Car is literally takes like 10 to 15 minutes to build because that's as good as it is.
yeah. It's tough, but I'm kind of leaning towards a 6 for this.
Okay. Um, Let me put that in. Then we have launching on the same day.
Hmm.
Nintendo Labo Toycon 02 Robot Kit, which is like a fucking 4.5 hour long build
Yeah,
for a backpack that doesn't fit adults.
yes, yeah, it seems very more narrowly defined for the sort of
This
use case here.
this is Miyamoto walked down a hall of someone who was like starting to work on Labo. He's like, I found the use for the giant robot battle.
Yes, Project Giant Robot or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, this is another sort of overhang scenario. I guess again, I could imagine in the right circumstances, with a parent and child or whatever. Like maybe this is more fun in terms of if you like the building and the goofiness of this might be even more rewarding, but
Maybe
it seems like it's narrower, you know what I mean? Like it
yes.
needs to be that kind
Like
of stuff. So,
like Top Hat Ant says, Project Giant Robot could have saved the Wii U. Uh, I know, Greg, that you are not extremely online, but could have saved the Wii U has become a meme recently.
recently, bloody
Yes.
hell, it's just let it go. I mean,
um. Yes, but
yeah. So I think on the basis of it being kind of narrower, I'll go with a 5 on this
are
one.
you sure that you don't want to make a height limited thing that has to strap around your shoes and then have a piece of rope from your back to your shoes and hope that the piece of rope is long enough?
Yeah, I there is no. I mean, there are so many reasons why this isn't for me, but certainly the patience required to do it, I think, was yeah, not certainly one area where I'd come up
Yes.
short.
GX, I've got bad news for you about you being online. Um, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. This time more expensive than the Wii U version launched at, let alone the
Yeah.
fact that by this point it was a budget priced Wii U game. So what the solution was? Let me just get rid of the Wii U version. No one will miss it.
Yeah, did they bring it back
No,
eventually, did that stay gone? Because there's
it is.
maybe it was Pikmin that came back. I forget that there was a
Actually,
bit of
I think this one did come back. I think all the others they actually just got rid of them straight up.
yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic game. It's nice to play it, portably, where you have the video quality isn't downsampled as much as it is on Wii U.
Yes.
You do have the funky new mode or the new funky mode, depending on where you are in the world.
Yes.
I mean, it is actually. I mean, principally, it's there seemingly as a kind of
Fuck, this is hard.
acknowledgement that it is was calibrated to be quite difficult, and this character kind of incorporates elements of all the other Kongs really to like
Yep.
make it easier. But it's also just fun to use that character, especially when you've somebody like me who's already beat the game. It's kind of interesting to go through. You could go through a bit faster and a bit more kind of carefree and
Yep.
as a kind of replay. So, but obviously it doesn't bring that much to it.
No, it does not.
I think it stays a 9 for me.
Yeah.
Excellent game. Obviously, yeah, the pricing stuff is kind of, but it's not especially it is better in a few little ways. It's not gonna drag it to an 8.
Yes. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. You gave the Wii U version a 7. You gave the 3DS version that added more content, but barely functioned on an original 3DS a 6. Where are we at with the Definitive Edition? all of the content, runs at a locked and stable frame rate, and is the only Warriors game on Switch to do so.
Yeah, this is tough because I didn't actually get around to. This is one of those things where I could sort of thought. I thought to myself, well, I could having already had owned it twice already. Admittedly, did not play a lot for the 3DS version because that sank a bit, and I profited off that. But still, it kind of again it was very much in that sort of non-urgent pickup kind of category. But of course, this did not sink in price.
It's on Switch.
It is on sale over here digitally at this very moment, but those are not the biggest discounts. It's 30%, and that's from the kind of top line digital price, which tends over here to be a fair bit in excess of what you'd get at a retailer anyway.
I thought you were going to say, and that's from the generosity of Nintendo's heart, the best you're going to get. Because it is.
Yeah, no, it is. It is 30% off their own stuff digitally is absolute. I mean, they even somewhat surprising. I'm surprised it ever goes on sale. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is on sale right now. Like I am shocked, to be honest.
I can't fathom why.
It's not the most common thing, but even something that is as evergreen as that does go on.
There is a promotion. There's a promotion on the Japanese eShop, not a sale, but a double gold coin.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah,
like that is more expected for something evergreen like this.
Yeah, exactly. But it's again, we got even more stuff. There was already plenty of stuff though. That's for sure. But yeah, even more cool stuff. So I think it's at least a 7 for this one. I guess it's just a question of whether all the extra stuff could kind of get it to an 8. Any opinion on that?
It's a ton of extra content. The extra content is pretty good. They have balanced the way that you unlock things to take into account that there's all this content.
Right.
So it doesn't do the thing buying the DLC would, which is just unlock them automatically. So it feels like a more cohesive, all-in-one game.
Integrated, yeah.
And can't overstate this enough, it's the only Warriors game that runs well on Switch.
Yeah, well, so it certainly is an Age of Calamity.
No, and it's not Persona 5 Strikers, and it's not Fire Emblem Warriors. The Fire Emblem Warriors ran fine. It ran pretty good if you had it in performance mode. But this is like actually high-resolution, stable, steady frame rate.
Yeah, maybe. I think we'll give it the 8.
Okay. The Switch version of Sushi Striker, The Way of Sushido, you gave the 3DS version a 7. Do you want to lower this or keep it at a 7?
I'd say we'll go with 6. Yeah, I think everything I've not played either one, but everything I've heard suggests that 3DS is the better fit.
Yes. Mario Tennis Aces.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. It kind of filled the spot when it came out in this year 18. Just like the summer kind of online sports game was a bit thin, especially at launch. But they did add in more characters and some more functionality and tournaments and stuff as it went on. Doing doubles tournaments online is quite fun. Kind of pairing up with a friend and then taking on other pairs online. That's I always enjoy that kind of thing with online play. So a 7, I think, for that.
Okay. There is just a few Switch games that I just hate talking about. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the first one. Which is why I don't envy being on RFN this week, as I would resume the biggest fight I've ever had with James, which is about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, so I had this and I played it and I did enjoy it, but it's a bit sort of qualified because there's certain elements that I felt really work. Once again, similar to with Xenoblade 2, we talked about that last week. Soundtrack's very nice. Very, very much enjoyed that. Some of the
very good soundtrack.
Some of the character motifs are really good, and they kind of have stuck with me to this day. With occasional sort of listens online, but some of it just sticks in the memory. But in terms of like the narrative, that's much less likely to stick in the memory because it's obviously
what narrative?
It's kind of not that like I'm the kind of person that absolutely craves like this deep, consistent, like compelling story to play an RPG. It certainly helps when there is one,
They tried
but
to make Live Alive 2, but fucked up.
yeah, it's I guess there is there's
Go
overlap
play
with that,
Live
but
Alive and see why I'm so mad at Octopath.
yeah, think about that though. You've got all the different like the time period settings and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. With this, it's just like, well, it's like it's all in the same world, but it doesn't really, which obviously is limited. Like you don't get the journey aspect that I see you get from Live Alive of see all these different eras and
Oh yeah, no,
aesthetics and stuff.
100%. And you'd think that the reason that you would bring all these characters into one world is so that they could interact with one another, right?
Yeah, that it would be integrated, that these things are overlapping, but there isn't really that much meaningful payoff to that. There's like they're just kind of incidental. It's like really everybody's stories just kind of play out, and it doesn't feel like you get any kind of real significant benefit of like, okay, this is all happening in the same world, so the same kind of like, you know power dynamics or all the world events are like affecting and cutting across these different narratives. It's like I could sort of conceive of how that could be cool, but it just isn't here.
Yes,
They don't capitalize. And I don't, look, that sounds quite difficult to get right, I have to say.
it
like,
does.
but they don't. They could certainly say they don't really get there.
Like in Live Alive, and I get that it's hard that every game in a Nintendo Direct only has a few seconds.
Yeah.
Especially if it's headlines, so I get why they can't really break down, like, we're just gonna sit you down for 3 minutes and tell you why Live Alive is fucking what you wanted out of Octopath. But, well, they're also not gonna say that, because they still make money from Octopath. But, what it is you start a story, you can do them in any order, pick the character you want, start the story, end the story, move on to the next one, 7 stories, chapter 8, is we're tying it all together. Which Octopath wants to do 8 characters, chapter 9, or like part 9 is it ties it all together. One, I don't think it ties it together that well. But then 2, you can't just pick a character and do their entire story. Because the fucking balance is going to kick you in the teeth.
No, exactly. I kind of flitted between a few characters and kind of ended up seeing a few of their kind of paths, but I didn't see all of the game because I'd kind of had my fill and there were some frictions there. But I did enjoy it. I thought the battle system was pretty good. I mean, obviously.
Oh, you like Shin Megami Tensei 2?
It owes stuff to other games that have been there. Obviously, you've got some elements that is a little bit carried over from like obviously different developers and everything, but there's some overlap with like Bravely games,
yes.
Where they're like kind of increasing actions per turn, kind of the option to take more actions per turn, and the elemental weaknesses and all that very SMT.
That's the thing.
I think it worked pretty well.
I almost lost all of my hair when I was reading reviews for this game that kept being like, it's so innovative that all the enemies have hidden weaknesses, and if you hit them you get an extra turn. And I'm like, you are gonna make me pull all of my hair out. What?
Yeah, well, it was kind of nice preparation for like when I played like Persona Q2, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I did play this before I played that.
I'm just like, SMT is 30 fucking years old right now. Fuck you for saying this is innovative in 2018.
Yeah, well, it's everybody's got their own background and context, but and the visuals was also another mixed element, I have to say, in terms of there were elements of the style that I kind of liked and I thought worked, but I think it was a bit too muddled in terms of like so many kind of effects and
just turn every effect on. And especially the blur for the bottom third of the screen.
Yeah, exactly. It just like it's tried a bit too hard. It put me in mind of 3D Dot Game Heroes, which I played on PS3 quite a bit. But just I don't know. I think it's been ages since I played that, but that felt like it was a bit more you kind of it knew what its style was, and it just
Yes.
kind of stuck to it. Whereas this was like they weren't quite sure, and it just kind of piled some different effects on top of each other. I just would have. I think just we haven't seen that much of it, but like the Drag Quest 3 HD 2D remake and Live Alive, like they look a little bit toned down from where this was to me in terms of like the heaviness of the blur and stuff like that. I mean, is that something you've seen?
Yeah, I have. So what I will say, at least with Triangle Strategy, again, different developer, is Triangle Strategy has the fucking option in the settings menu to turn the blur off.
Yeah, there were some options with Octopath, but not
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 that
no-
one.
not as much as I
Um,
would have
so
liked.
here's what I'll say: is here's how to fix Octopath Visuals, and won't help you, unfortunately. Subscribe to Game Pass, get the PC version from that, and then just go into the fucking INI files and just turn off blue. You can fit, you can access, because it's an Unreal Engine 4 game. You can access
Mm.
all the fucking graphics options in a file, and guess what? Very easy to fix all of my visual problems with Octopath by just scaling the visuals back.
No, I do. Well, that's even though obviously, yeah, that's not something I've done or would be in a position to do. It just sort of makes sense just based on me looking at it, just like the kind of aesthetic it does appeal on a certain level. The kind of pixel art, pasted onto a polygonal environment, but just we just need to go a little easier, I think, and it would have helped. So
Yes.
it's quite tough to take all of this stuff together but I think the soundtrack and the battle system, which are definitely two of the most important aspects for my kind of ability to enjoy playing an RPG. I think I will go with a 7. I can't go to a 6. So even
Okay.
though I think there's flaws enough where you
Oh
could
yeah.
go
No,
lower, I think a 7 is where I'd
yes.
balance it
I
out at.
think for me, just the fact that at this point in 2018, I'm firmly out of honeymoon with the Brave and Default mechanic after playing 2 games with that.
Mm,
And I have played SMT games for like, I don't know, 20 years at this point,
yeah.
give or take. That I just looked at it and was like, well, the battle system is unremarkable to me because it is just a combination of 2 different franchises. And do
Yeah.
they work well? Yes. Is it doing anything new? No. And then it's like, well, for me, it's story, world, and characters are the important things. And to all of those, get a big thumbs down from me. So that's why I'm like,
Mm.
this game, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there are a lot of people that are like, this is God's gift to gamers. And I look at it and I'm like, hmm, hmm, maybe go play some more games. Maybe,
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I like both, but I can
yes.
see where they don't. And again, a lot of it is, especially with Xenoblade, the soundtrack is like exceptionally good.
I
But
listened to the Octopath and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 soundtracks. Those are good albums, but I
yes,
don't
you
need to
could.
play the games for those.
They are separable. It's
Yes, they are
true.
very separable in my mind. You can have a great soundtrack on a terrible game. I'm not calling either of these games terrible, even if sometimes I feel that way. But like, I would not go below a 4 on Octopath, but I might not go above a 5.
Mm.
Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on Switch. You gave the 3DS version an 8. Is it an 8 for Switch?
Yeah, it's like I guess with the 3DS we had the fact that it felt like it finally reached its natural home of stereoscopic 3D. We don't have that with Switch, so yeah, I feel like it's probably more of like a 7.5 type of situation.
Yeah. Which
So
direction?
maybe I'll go with 7. We're getting
Okay.
a lot of 7s, but yeah, that's
Yes.
just the way the cookie crumbles.
Also, I appreciate just for the reference, and I know I'm saying this on episode 15 of the third person to do this. Um, just just as a public record, I never told James, Neal, or Greg that I don't accept .5s. I don't accept .5s, but no one has ever asked or tried.
I to be honest, I think it just made it from my point of view. I was kind of glad to accept it being integers, just because it kind of narrows the options down a bit. Because
Yes.
as you are painfully aware at this point, as I'm not that expeditious as it is. I think
It's fine.
if I had more options, I don't think it would have sped things up. Let's
It's
just put it
fine. We'll
that way.
put out a Criterion Blu-ray collection of this stream when it's
Oh
done.
yeah, it's gonna be like the Bergman set that
Yes.
Criterion have got. In
Um.
every conceivable way, it is going to be like that.
Yes. Does NWR have half numbers? Yes, it does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's, look, 8.5. Does that mean
Yeah.
anything to you?
8.5 the conduit. Um. Go Vacation, which was a Bandai Namco game on Wii that people liked and didn't play, so Nintendo put it back out on Switch so that people could like it and not play it.
I'm not entirely familiar with what this is. Yeah,
It's
it's
an
a
open
good.
world minigame collection.
It's yeah, because I mean the name, sure, but beyond that, yeah, it's not something I really. Yes, I mean any guidance other than what you've
Um,
already provided would be good.
yeah, again, uh, how people that well, the Wii game has a 64 on Metacritic and the Switch game has a 62.
Mm-hmm.
The NWR's review is one of the 3 greens on the Switch version. I gave it a
Oh.
7.5. It's almost all yellows. It's basically like, yeah, it's neat. That's basically everyone's opinion is, yeah, it's neat. Kind of a
It's
very
that,
non-committal review.
yeah, it's got. I think a non-committal 6 is
Okay.
probably where I'm gonna go with that.
Nintendo Labo Toycon 03 Vehicle Kit. Again, very, very forward-thinking to put the 0 before before the 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
As if they're gonna make 10 of them. Yeah, so this is a steering wheel, how do they frame it? It's a submarine control. Yeah, they just call it a submarine. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It's 2 dials basically, and an airplane flight stick, and a pedal. Oh, and the pedal and the steering wheel combined work in Mario Kart. But the big difference here is that the software for all of these is like it is a big open world exploration game where you're switching. You can switch on the fly between all the different mobility options, and it actually has thought and care put into it. It's pretty neat. It is also expensive and a lot of cardboard, but
Yes.
$70. Like the variety kit, robot kit was $80 for only one build, which is why that was oof. But
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I probably would lead to go with the 6 again on this one.
okay,
It's tough. It's tough for me to score these because they're so not in my domain. But it seems like it's probably, more toward the variety than the robot.
yes. Okay, and then we will get to Toycon 04 in 2019, and we have a discussion about that one, I'm sure. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna, the Golden Country.
Yeah, yeah. Is that a tilde?
No. No, it's an M dash.
When we get to that point of titles where it's
No,
like,
if the Golden Country tilde, the one that has all of the fixes for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that will ever get ported back into Xenoblade Chronicles 2, tilde.
Yeah, well, it's I've not got around to this. James talked about it on RFN. He seemed to quite like it, so I thought, that's something that I might get around to one day. And here we are,
Yeah.
about 6 months or whatever it is, 7 months away from.
Yeah, 7 months.
7 months away from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I've not got around to it yet. It is on sale in that aforementioned European eShop sale.
I would say if there is one Xenoblade experience on Switch, other than 2, that is critical to play before 3, I would go with Future Connected
Future
and not
Connected,
Torna.
I already have that. So
My guess,
I have not played it yet, but
yes, Future
it's there.
Connected is 100% required to understand 3. Torna, the jury's out. So
Yeah,
I would say go with the safer pick.
I think definitely it'd be a case of I play Future Connected before Torna because I already have it. I don't have to buy it. I just need to get around to it. And also, now that we have this, it's like there's Xenoblade 3, and it's going to follow on from 1 and 2, and like you want to get your ducks in a row with that. Whereas Torna is a prequel to 2. So
yes,
at least in the main anyway.
It is a prequel to 2. It is I don't know. It's a 30-hour Xenoblade game, which is much preferable to an 80-hour Xenoblade game.
It's one of the appealing things when James talked about it.
Yeah, they fucking cut out all of their bloat that, like, X is kind of as long as you want it to be, so I don't even count it as bloated in that way. Like,
yeah, it's different.
Yeah, the main game, if you like fucking just mainlined it, would be 25 hours, but you'd be missing the point. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 could both use an editor to cut out not like an entire chunk, but like here and there to cut about 15 hours from the runtime of each.
Just kind of streamline it a little bit. It just kind of feels like you feel almost as well like at times. I don't know, maybe I'm projecting intent here, but it just feels like, and this is something I felt like with Zelda games over the years as well, where it's like somewhere someone is thinking about like we need to hit a certain threshold for it to be sort of considered as epic as we think it should be.
No, this is the Twilight Princess problem 100%. So the good news is that Torna does absolve that. Torna, look, if you didn't like the characters in 2, this is gonna do nothing to convince you otherwise. Like, absolutely nothing. This is banking on you liking the characters in 2. As someone who liked some of the characters in 2, I liked some of the characters in Torna.
That kind of sounds kind of like where I'd be. I
think. It's like, I did not particularly give a fuck about Jin. They really think I do, because did you know Tetsuya Nomura designed Jin? Therefore, he's cool?
I did. Yeah, the whole because the whole Torna as but this is when obviously in this case it's the continent, I guess, but in the mainline Xenoblade 2, Torna is the name also of the group of of characters that were designed by Nomura. Yes,
and so don't you know he's cool and edgy? And what if he was cool but less edgy because he hadn't been edged yet? Anyways, Torna is a lot. Notable is it includes some new areas. It does reuse or give modifications of existing areas because budget. It has new music, but it doesn't have that much new music. It's like
it's got that battle theme.
It has the battle theme. Nice. Battle theme very good. It has about 15. Good. I think it's like 15 tracks on the DLC soundtrack or something, which sounds like a fucking lot for a DLC. But then you remember like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has like 100 songs on the soundtrack.
There's so much.
So it is a pretty small ratio of new music, but new music is pretty good. It has a better map than Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It has clearer menus. It got rid of almost all of the menus that sucked. Like the menu system in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, not the map. Literally going into the pause menu and being, where is the thing that I want to do? What menu is it nested under? They solved that problem by just cutting out 80% of the menus. They got rid of the fucking gotcha bullshit, where you just keep pulling, hoping that you get a good. Anyways.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's a lot of things that sound like it would be, kind of. Working towards a sort of being something that I like more than the original Xenoblade 2, But equally, I had played that game and enjoyed it, but I played it a lot. So
Yeah,
this is a kind of common theme with some of
like
these DLC games for that. It's just like, yeah, I've played a lot of this. I'm not at a place there where I feel like I really need to play it
yeah,
to play more, even if it is actually better. Like it's not just
yes,
more; it's what's more is actually better in some
yes.
ways. But it's like I'm kind of satiated. Is
I
the
would
issue I
say, and James would agree with me that Torna is better than 2. I would say that it bumps it from a 3 to a 6.
Yeah, well, that's quite a jump. The problem I've got is I don't know whether I could go to a 9 without having played it.
Yeah,
But I
I
was
would.
already at an 8, so it's kind of like this might
Yeah,
be
I would just
more
give
of
it
an.
the 8 probably.
This is more of an 8.5 ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
There we invoke that score, but I think it's going to have to be an 8. If I'd played it and really got to it, it'd be interesting if I do get to it before 3, like having been away from that world and the characters and all that for so long, rather than just the next year, as it was for people who played it when it came out, how that affects is like, am I less like exhausted of some of these people, or is
Yeah.
it just, or if you take the context out of it, does it make it less rich? I'm not sure. It's ambiguous to me, but it'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know. So we're going with an 8. Again, I would, if I gave Xenoblade Chronicles 2 a 7, I would probably give it a 7.5 or an 8. Like it is it is a if I liked Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I think it would be slightly better, which would be saying something because I like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. In fact, I do not like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, I think that it is still under Xenoblade Chronicles 1 for me. But I acknowledge it is way the fuck better than 2 was. Alright, speaking of games that I don't want to acknowledge that much, Super Mario Party.
Yeah, I've not really, I've sort of said many times with the Mario Party series during this. I've not played it. Obviously, sort of the most recent sort of contact point for it in my brain is the fact that it did get updated for the pandemic, sort of to have more online functionality, but it didn't start with that much. So yeah, I'm trying to think. We've been, you know, a fair few different places on the lower end of the scale with this, so it's a question of where it's going to land here. It seemed like it was sort of, a little bit better, landed a bit better than some of its immediate
I mean,
predecessors.
look, Mario Mario Party fans, a group that is hard for me to empathize with, not because I don't have empathy for them, but because of my thought process is just fucking, I don't know, you're here to suffer. Like, I don't know what you want.
Submit yourself to
Like,
the vicissitudes.
Mario Party is about either fucking over or getting fucked over, and to hear Mario Party fans say, it's fun when you fuck people over. And I'm like, yeah, but statistically that is unlikely.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
statistically in a 4-player game that is a game of chance, you are roughly 3 times as likely to get fucked over. So,
maybe whether they want to admit it or not, they're into that as well.
yeah, maybe. But so yeah, Super Mario Party is interesting in that it is a more straightforward Mario Party experience than the ones where you were in a car, which again people hated because it was a change to the formula. You gave Mario Party 10 a 4.
Yeah, maybe a 5. Maybe we go to a 5 on this one.
Okay. The World Ends With You Final Remix.
Yes, I played the DS version back. We did a retroactive on it. So yeah, I have some familiarity with the game, But the final remix version, I mean, I guess the big question was how they kind of translate the two screen stuff and all that. Like, how did that work?
Well, do you want to talk about Doctor Handheld because they're different?
Ah, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, that would make sense because handheld you do have a touchscreen
You
still,
do
I
have a
guess.
touchscreen in handheld, and so the broad answer is that in touchscreen, it is you're swiping and you're doing the motions.
Right.
In fucking docked mode, I want you to take a guess.
I don't know. Have you got like doing some? I don't know, doing things with like the right stick or something? Like,
Oh, I would love that. No, I would love if if they just did what the Wonderful 101 did and people didn't like. That would
okay,
have been
yeah.
ideal. Of course not. No. So your right Joy-Con is a Wii remote. That is a cursor on the screen that you drag your like you use as a cursor point to drag around, and also flick back and forth, up and down, and in precise shapes to use your attacks, while trying not to let it keep losing it with the gyroscope.
Yeah.
It's fucking bad. It has a fully remixed soundtrack. The soundtrack's really good.
Yeah, it was already very good.
It was already very good. The remixes are also very good. It adds a new It has a new week at the end, like a new chapter at the end of the game that connects directly to Neo: The World Ends With You.
Right.
So the fact that Neo: The World Ends With You is not just a sequel, but it is a sequel to the Switch version people didn't like, is very funny. But yeah, I don't know. It was a bad version of that game. Like, The World Ends With You has been, the original one, including this, has now been on 3 platforms.
Yeah.
DS, mobile, and Switch. And the Switch is the worst version.
Yeah, I came into this thinking, I mean, I knew the version was not particularly well liked, relative to the content of the game, but not, precisely why. But yeah, that's clearer now. I was coming into it thinking, maybe a 7, but I guess the question is, does the version stuff take it to a 6?
I would say it definitely does. I would say
Well,
it definitely lowers it.
Let's go with the 6 then.
Okay.
Sad by the sound of it, but
Yes.
I do quite like the game from what
I
I
like
played
The
of
World
it
Ends
back
With
then.
You, and I really fucking liked Neo: The World Ends With You. I think Neo: The World Ends With You is what do we do if we're taking The World Ends With You as a concept and not just porting the game that was built to never be able to be off the DS?
Yeah.
And what if we had hindsight when we were making this type of game? Is what Neo: The World Ends With You is. Pokemon, let's go Pikachu and let's go Eevee.
Yeah, I didn't get to these. So
I would
yeah,
say give them a try, except they're $60 still.
yeah, that's the toughest part. Is like, you kind of if you don't get them straight away, then it's like there's always something else Pokemon on the horizon, and it's not
Exactly.
going to get cheaper. And it's just it's very much with Pokemon. I don't think I've ever played a Pokemon game like as something I've gone back to. Like every
Yeah.
time I played one, so that's Pearl and Soul Silver and Moon and
Yes. I would
Shield
be.
and now with Legends Arceus, it's always at launch, and
Yes.
then
I
if
would
it's
be
not,
very actually interested in hearing your take on this. And there might be a demo version out. I'm not sure, but I would be very interested in your specific opinion, especially based on last week's RFN, where you're talking about the throwing mechanic in Legends Arceus and not having to battle for it, because this game exists to try and bridge Pokemon Go players
with
into
Pokemon.
Pokemon console players. And since you have no experience with Pokemon Go,
No, exactly.
very interested to see how you would take a remake of Pokemon Yellow, where you are throwing Pokeballs like in Pokemon Go, and with that mechanic of there's two concentric circles. One of them is the border, one of them is shrinking, and you're trying to get inside of both circles while the second circle is as small as it can be. Touch controls or motion controls. Yeah, would be interested in that.
Yeah, no, it was something that did kind of intrigue at the time, and I mean, I have played Yellow, but only as a virtual console thing, or a little bit like other people's copies back in the day, because I didn't have a Nintendo handheld
you
until
can go
GBA.
Listen back to probably, I'm going to guess, episode 3 or 4 for that.
Right.
Of this podcast, which is
yes,
a podcast
I did.
now.
Yes, I did this Criterion series. Yes, I did mention that. But yeah, so yeah, but seeing that region and all those sort of Pokemon realize and all that with these mechanics, it's certainly intrigued. But yeah, I guess you could also say, God, they've been remade enough also as well.
Yes.
the Kanto 151 stuff.
This is the third remake or second remake.
Yeah, so because the Leaf Green,
yes,
Fire Red.
Well, again, this is the funniest thing: is if you go in order for their remakes. After remaking Ruby Sapphire, the next games to remake are, in fact, Fire Red, Leaf Green. And they did that. And then they remade Diamond and Pearl. Literally, the next games to remake would be Heart Gold, Soul Silver. If you're following this trajectory.
I mean, I don't think it's obviously it's difficult at the moment because it's getting more complicated now. We've got to a place where it's like, oh well, we can outsource the development of a traditional remake to somebody else.
Yes.
And we can make this Legends sort of a spin-off, but it's quite like mainliney.
They're calling it mainline, but yes.
Yeah, so
I would be very interested because Johto is now the oldest generation to not have an accessible remake.
Yeah, and I was just, I wouldn't put it past. There's just like, no, let's do like Golden Silver. Let's go back to that region and that era of Pokemon again.
I'm telling you, let's go Pichu. Let's go Wooper.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that now it's like, well, it can't be legendaries, but it can't be starters either. Apparently, although, well, Pikachu was a starter in Yellow, of course, wasn't he? So he's a special.
Gold and Silver fundamentally are the legendaries.
Yeah,
that is Ho-Oh and Lugia. So
that's because, of course, with the box art of the first generation, it was the starters.
Yep.
Whereas, the second generation established that the legendaries would be the box cover stars.
Yes.
So yeah.
But if it's Let's Go, you're not gonna have Ho-Oh on your hat the whole game. I mean, I would love that. That would be the stupidest option, and I would buy a copy of both immediately. But no. Anyways, these are fun. They have all the Pokemon in the overworld. This is the first game to do that.
Right.
It is. There are 153 Pokemon in it because they introduced Meltan and Melmetal, which are Pokemon that have not really been anywhere else since.
Yeah.
They were actually.
There's always going to be something new.
So that was actually interesting in Pokemon Go in the funniest possible way, because they actually did it to screw with data miners. They introduced the Meltan Pokemon at the end of an event, when an event, there's a weekend event or something, and when it ended, for the next hour, a bunch of Meltans spawned before the Pokemon had been announced, and you catch it, and it would the game would be like, nope, that was a Ditto. And so then I was like, well, then what the fuck is this Pokemon? Because it doesn't tell you their name. And so people went and data mined it, and they have protected against that too, because it was using another Pokemon's Pokemon number, like Pokedex number.
Wow.
So everyone was like, what the fuck is this? And then the answer is, haha, they announced it like 2 weeks later what it was. But everyone was like losing their minds, being like, was this a bug? Did they leak a Pokemon? What happened? GX is saying that you still need to play Go to get the evolution. That's not true. They gave it away in Pokemon Home for subscribers of that.
Oh wow! Yeah, I guess that's a way.
Yes, there is a way. If you subscribe to Pokemon Home, you could get Melmetal, and that was specifically that was a Gigantamax version for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Anyways, yeah.
So I think, yeah, tough to score all of this. I think I'm probably gonna go with a 7, but again, it's somewhat limited by not having played it. I could imagine if I'd played it, it could be an 8 maybe, but
yes.
It could be a lot of things, but that certainly seems like a very plausible thing. But as it stands, I'll go with 7.
Yes, I am looking at just looking at this. Does this have an expiration date? I don't think it does. I think it is permanent if you connect Pokemon Go to Pokemon, which is not Game Freak, which is to Pokemon Home, which is not Game Freak. GX is blaming Game Freak for this. Neither.
Isn't that the people that made the BDSP or whatever?
BDSP is developer Ilka made Home, and Niantic makes Pokemon Go. If you connect the two, then you get a Melmetal in Home. I believe that is still active, and you don't need to pay anything. You just need to download both apps on your phone.
If you connect the two, Palpatine can shoot lightning again. Yes. It makes more sense than what actually happens in that film. I still don't really get that bit, but I don't think you can.
No, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with all of its DLC.
It's dizzying, isn't it? Everything. In some ways, it's like, well, I gave Melee a 10. I have given very few 10s. I've been stingy with the 10s. There's probably some.
I would understand giving this a 10 though.
I think it's still going to be a 9. It's absolutely incredible what they've done in a lot of ways and stuff, but especially when you consider the full scope of it. But of course, I guess the one thing I will say is it does kind of owe so much to Wii U and 3DS. You know what I mean? It is kind of like that game, but refined and very significantly expanded.
The fact that this can be as much as it is because they had that framework.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of silly in a way, but it's like if somehow this had just dropped out of the sky on Switch, which of course for a lot of people it did because they didn't have Wii U, but it may be that it would get the 10, but I think I'll just go with 9, even though I think there's many things about it that would merit maybe go into the 10, and good God, I've played it so much. It's ridiculous. There's lots of flab in the number because of using the music player and waiting for matchmaking and just like fucking about, but it's like nearly 900 hours on my Switch thing. Yeah. So it's just ridiculous. It's indispensable stuff for me. So I could go to the 10, but I'll go with the 9.
Okay. Fitness boxing.
Yeah, so I guess this did okay because they did another one, right?
This did pretty well because people want fitness things published by Nintendo on Switch.
And they picked it up. Who did they pick this up from, or
Destineer.
So I guess it was one of these things where they just felt like at this point there's like a gap, well, this is something that we could have, we could use in a sort of lineup, but we don't actually have anything at this stage, which they would later. But yeah, I'm not really familiar with the merits of it myself, so tough to score.
It's fine. The demo had me punching to a MIDI version of Eye of the Tiger while a British woman yelled at me. So, I don't know, that's a 10 or a 1? I don't know.
It's, I'm not sure if I've heard it discussed, but I can't really remember the substance, even if I had. So I think maybe 6 for that. It's vague, but that's what I've got.
Pokemon Quest, which was made by Game Freak, and it's a shitty free-to-play Diablo game.
Oh, yeah, is this one with like the
Cubes.
cuboid graphics?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is Pokemon Rumble, but made by Game Freak. But it's not that much better.
But yeah, maybe we're a 4 for that.
Yeah, this was the first Pokemon game on Switch, other than, or no, there's Pokken Tournament DX.
Well,
like,
sure.
The
Yeah,
first
so
new
different.
one.
Yeah, true. Also, not one
All
even
right.
entirely original.
I've got a proposition for you.
Sure.
What if you're Nintendo and someone comes to you and says, we're used to spending approximately $100 million a year in development budget on ludicrously polished mobile games. And we got this game in development, and you can fund it and put your name on it and help develop it. It's not going to have your IP. It's not going to have anyone's IP. It's just a whole new IP. How fast would you sign that check?
Yeah, well, it's
just I spend a lot of money. Want to give me yours?
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. I guess it's one of these things where they this kind of especially because seemingly, that once they eventually caved Nintendo and said, well, we're doing mobile games,
Yep.
we're being very serious about it. We have the DNA deal, we're swapping equity in each other's companies, and it's all very serious and all that. But then, of course, you actually get into making the games, and they seem to take a lot longer than Nintendo had imagined and stuff. Like, I think this is, something that they kind of really needed, in that it's like, hey, it was just like somebody that already knows how to make this kind of stuff.
Yes, no,
like
I
yeah,
get.
Here you go.
I get why they want to partner with Cygames. Cygames is I know you are going to be less familiar with Cygames, but they have done some of the biggest games on the system. Like, I'm just gonna name some in the order that you're most likely to have heard of them.
Okay.
Number 1, Grand Blue Fantasy.
The name, it does ring a bell, but nothing
If we are starting with that ringing a bell, this is doomed.
Yes.
That is one of the single biggest games. Let's see here. There's of course, there's Dragalia Lost. There's Musume Pretty Derby, which is about horse girls racing, but it is one of the highest grossing games in like the Japanese App Store history.
Well, I mean, that the Japanese fascination with horse racing is something that I was familiar with.
Girls.
Wow, yeah, certainly from like import coverage going all the way back to the early 90s, so I guess it's not that surprising.
Shadowverse, Princess Connect, The Idolmaster Cinderella Girls Starlight Stage. Like, this is just what they do. They spend a fuck ton of money on games that hit super big and that have an enormous amount of production value. World Flipper is one that came out recently, which is a pixel art pinball game that is extremely good. Like Princess Connect, Princess Connect Redive. They made a game co-developed with Platinum Games for mobile called Lost Order. Like, this is what they do. They are, when it comes to we are going to spend $100 million on this and expect to make $2 billion back. They are the kings of this, like, extremely high investment, high return mobile world. And Dragalia Lost feels like, well, first of all, someone deeply cares about Dragalia Lost. Nintendo, like, you look at, if you only follow, like, at Nintendo America, you've never heard of Dragalia Lost. If you only fucking watch Nintendo Direct, you've never heard of Dragalia Lost. If you only pay attention to Nintendo games on the Switch, you've probably never heard of Dragalia Lost. If you are on mobile with Nintendo's, and, like, you've just played all of Nintendo's mobile games, even for, like, 30 minutes, like, Fire Emblem Heroes is by far their highest grossing, and it's, like, hilarious how much that game has grossed. There was just an earnings report about it around the time of the Nintendo financial earnings, and you're like, this is the stupidest number. Why are they not making why are they not just tripling down on Fire Emblem Heroes and abandoning all the rest?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fire Emblem Heroes has done very well for them, and it's pretty high production value. You know, all the characters have voice lines and guest artists, and the story has writing. No. Dragalia Lost is out here commissioning 5-minute long bespoke pop songs for an event that goes away in a week.
Well, I guess it's the whole fear of missing out thing
Dragalia Lost is burning money. It is like super, like, first of all, there are a lot of people that want to play Dragalia Lost, but literally either the phones A can't run it because it's too high end, or B they don't have the space because it's like an 8 GB install on your phone. Because it's all of this production value. Like, it is tons and tons of English language voice acting and Japanese language voice acting. Tons and tons and tons of like original music and very high quality 3D models and environments and bespoke animations and online multiplayer and room lobbies and playing with friends and raids and dungeons and there's a fucking battle royale in there literally. And there's like all this fucking shit. There's a story that I believe is on chapter 25 that has gone so... It has gotten so far since the original launch of the game's story that literally if you are a new account, it asks you, like, one of the first prompts is, do you want to just read like a manga summary of the first 10 chapters and skip them? We'll just like give you like a chapter 11 ready crew and you can just get going because I don't know.
It's
like,
too much. It's too much to retrace all the way.
Yeah, it's like, hey, the first 10 is like a lot of setup, and then like the story gets really, really into it, so we're gonna really, really kick in from there. The only real complaint I have about Dragalia Lost is it is expensive, and I don't mean that in like expensive to play or play well. You can play the whole game without putting a dime in. There's no subscription services, there's like, does it rely on gacha? Yes, but like the 5-star rate is high enough that like if you aren't always looking for the most recent character, you're unlikely to be shit out of luck, and the game does, especially if you're new, give you a ton of currency. No, it's the fact that like the value of I'm gonna do a gacha pull versus the amount of dollars if you were paying is completely out of whack. It's like $30 a pull. It's like, what the fuck is this? Like, for Fire Emblem, it's like $7. It's like $7 for a full pull, whereas here it's like $30. And it's because they're making all their money on macro transactions. Whereas I have literally, like, the way that I play mobile games and, like, the monetization is I usually treat it like a tip jar. Where I'm like, I'm going to go in expecting to pay $0. And if I'm having a great time and like I've been playing for like 30 hours and I'm engaged and you're giving me a great game, fucking of course I'll give you $15, whatever. Like, I'm not going to pay because, oh my god, I need X, because that's unhealthy. And that is what their business system is, but like, business model is.
Yeah.
But like, for me, because I have like some level, like I have an uncommon level of restraint and self-control that like their psychological warfare does not tend to work on me. Which they're banking on their psychological warfare working on people. That's how the whole free-to-play system works. But like, frequently I will just go into the Dragalia Lost shop and nope out because there's nothing for me to buy.
Yeah, if the increments are that big, it's just like, it's tough to say, no, you can have this for services rendered.
I literally have used the in-game feedback system that's usually like, I want the game, like, the game is unbalanced in this way, or like, hey, I found a bug, or like, hey, this is a feature I would like. And they actually, like, the director has a monthly column in the app responding to feedback. Because like, they take that stuff very seriously. I have multiple times submitted, please let me just give you money like a tip jar without it being $30 fucking dollars, your economics are balanced out of whack. But like that's the only con I have for it. It's really really fun.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting choice it's such a clear line of demarcation there almost between the people who are going to play without ever spending money and then people who are going to spend in relatively large increments. It's kind
Yes,
of
it's like
you tend to think of them like wanting to erect a kind of slippery slope.
exactly.
There
You'd think that they would want to make you want to move from A to B. Here, there's like a wall being like, you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
Are you giving us money or are you a coward?
I guess it's kind of transparent in a way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's a very
it's
Nintendo thing to do, of course.
Mm.
I have to imagine that like a lot of the you're gonna get a billion pieces of free currency and free polls. That came from Nintendo. Their other side games as other games do not do that.
Right, yeah, makes sense. So I guess that's what you get when you partner up with them.
Yes, Nintendo wants
kinda...
to be more generous. I don't know. I will say, genuinely, and I know why they didn't. Genuinely surprised the main character of this game was not one of the DLC characters in Smash.
Well, it's you could argue there's certainly more kind of instrumental value or whatever in that than like advertising other companies' characters.
Yes, like I'm like, did Tekken need more? Did like Tekken need representation more than Dragalia did? But like also, maybe the worry is like Dragalia Lost will shut down one day. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah,
but
arguably F-Zero has been shut down
Yeah,
for a very long time. I
Yeah.
wouldn't begrudge Captain
like-
Falcon's ongoing presence in Smash.
no spirits, no music either.
Yeah.
Like, the music is very good. Like you've already paid for it. You have the rights to it. What's going on with that?
And Sakurai always like to say about how basically it was your point above himself and sort of say basically this stuff
Yeah.
comes from up there. So presumably, had they wanted it, it would have happened.
I guess it's like I don't know. Yes, it's a fucking anime sword wielder as the main character, but like also can shapeshift into a ton of different dragons is like that main character's main gimmick, and that feels like that lends itself to a lot of special moves. So like I don't fucking know. It's weird.
No, well, look, I mean, good God, some of the stuff they were asked to do. I mean, like the Minecraft character.
Oh,
yes. I mean, it's like way, way harder and more sort of additional work. So, I'm sure they could have done it and would have done a good job if they'd been asked to. But it just seems like, Nintendo, as you mentioned, with the way that it's, with the social media stuff, it's just kind of siloed.
If you don't follow Nintendo Mobile or at Dragalia Lost EN, you don't hear about this game.
That's the way they want it. I mean, why the full like reasons behind that, I guess, is only known to them. But that's it.
They keep being like, we're not going to show our mobile games in our direct. Bitch, you did a cast announcement for your movie in a direct.
Yeah,
you're actively making video games over here. Like,
no, it seems a bit more pertinent, to be fair. Much more. I mean, I've said at the time, just like that totally didn't work for me.
Park direct.
Yes, the theme park
and that
stuff
made it on their main channel. But then you have Dragalia Digests and Fade channels, which are the Dragalia and Fire Emblem Heroes versions of Direct. You have like 2 to 6 of them a year. And they are only on Nintendo Mobile.
It feels like it feels like they're really, really sensitive about this notion that the business model that exists in mobile is something that can taint their whole perception, and
they're just throwing so much money into it, and like,
even though it's way more pertinent than theme parks and movies, that it has to be like oil and water.
Yes,
whereas those are not.
Like I was hearing people talking when in direct. Well, people were predicting what's going to be in the direct, which every time is hilarious. But like people are expecting that the Shadows of Valentia team is probably remaking another game, and that like Koei Tecmo is probably working on like the next mainline Fire Emblem, and then like Intelligent Systems internal Fire Emblem team has to have been doing something for all these years, right? I'm like, yeah, dude, they've been working on Heroes for years. Intelligent Systems updates that game every single day with new stuff.
And it's not without cause, because it's very lucrative. So it's not like
that. Yeah, they are making more money than they would on a Fire Emblem Echoes. Like what was games industry? Fire Emblem Heroes in the last 5 years has grossed $959 million.
yes, right, yeah.
Their number 2, Animal Crossing, 267.
Yep,
next to 959. And
yeah, it's not even. It is absolutely nowhere close. And
Fire Emblem has done very well for the mobile. Very well. So I don't know. What do you want to give Dragalia?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to know, but I mean, certainly, I think the production values, the kind of the relative generosity about being able to play the game without it being too predatory or sort of aggressive about pushing the transactions on you and stuff, certainly deserves credit. So I'm thinking I'd probably go with an 8, maybe.
That sounds right. Nice. Our average is exactly 6.9.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Wow. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's our second highest ever. You really liked Nintendo's 2018.
Well, we didn't have a lot of outright clunkers, did we?
No.
Even some of the ones that there was a lot of 7s, so
yes,
it's like
a couple 4s and 5s, but nothing.
7, which pretty much the average,
yes.
but it's exquisitely not quite.
Yes, no, so that's great. No, if you want to talk about mobile games that are very gross, let's go to 2019.
Yeah.
All right, here we are at the end of the 3DS.
Yes.
2 more games, and then rest in peace, King. Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey, a core game that was already playable on the DS.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And it also already looked very nice, and
they didn't change the art style.
It already sounded pretty good. Like, I think more so that we talked about the kind of music upgrade last time. I mean, certainly 3DS games really did take, but I think there was less. It was less to be gained with taking the Bowser's Inside Story soundtrack and taking it to 3DS.
But guess
whereas
what? Alpha Dream couldn't afford Switch.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, also I think unlike the Superstar Saga remake, I don't think this has a 60 frame rate. I think it's down a bit and stuff, and I don't know how much the Junior Bowser's Junior.
It's the same mode people didn't like in the last one.
Yeah, so I mean, a game I very, very much like in its original form, and I'm sure it's still, fundamentally pretty good here. But I think I'll go with a 7.
Okay, and then the last game, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn.
Yeah, I've been playing this quite recently, so compared to all these other games, this is actually really, really something I could speak to very directly. But I mean, you don't have stereoscopic 3D as a sort of augment here, which still, even though it's not like the diorama style of Woolly World, still would have had offered something in terms of the different layers of fabric, especially when Kirby's kind of going behind and inside layers, to kind of go to different places or all that kind of thing. So I think it's a little bit of a shame that you don't have the stereoscopic 3D, but it's not a huge deal either. Then if you kind of looking at the rest of the game, it's modest sort of stuff in terms of there's a kind of harder mode where something an enemy turns up and harasses you, which I just kind of think is missing the point of that game, to be honest, to have that in there. But I guess it's something to give people an option. You don't have co-op anymore, so Prince Fluff just shows up and gives you like some beads or something. That's his like function in the game now. And there's some auto runner stuff with the DDD and Meta Knight, but they don't add a great deal. But it's still like such a exceedingly pleasant game, and the aesthetic still comes across quite strongly. So I think I'd stick with the 8. It's like probably a little bit closer to going down to the 7 than I was, when we scored this back on Wii. But I think it just is enough to maintain.
Okay. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Probably not a lot to say. So what's the number?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with an 8 on this. Just
Okay.
like, either I like New Super Luigi U, obviously it's part of it, and it's a very strong game,
Yes.
especially bundling those together. But
It
it
made
doesn't
them
really.
a lot of money to put it on Switch.
Yeah, exactly. It deserves it. It deserves the better, audience.
And to not come out the same year as another Mario 2D platformer.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
actually, it did with Super Mario Maker 2.
Well,
It
yeah,
can't
that's
escape.
true. But there's a little bit more separation. But yeah,
Yes.
I'll go with 8 on that.
Yoshi's Crafted World.
Yeah, so this is a bit different from the kind of Yoshi game. We've had so many Yoshi games at this point that we have rated that are Yoshi's Island DS, Yoshi's New Island, Yoshi's Woolly World, which are all just like, okay, Yoshi's Island, that's a game that people like. Let's just do another one, and there's fundamentally very similar with somewhat disparate results. Some like. I think Woolly World's really, really well done, whereas the other one's less so. But with this, it's more like kind of, it's not like a sequel to Yoshi's Story, but it's almost like an alternate take on that idea in terms of like, okay, well, what if, we deviated from the Yoshi's Island formula somewhat and made it a somewhat different kind of game, but not in exactly the same way that Yoshi's Story did. And I think it's more successful than Yoshi's Story, but it's like downplaying the action elements of the Yoshi's Island formula, and it's more about observation, being sort of thorough. And so, it's probably less my style of game, but equally, I think there's a lot of ways in which they do it quite well for what it is. Like I said, just very, very crucial of just like this very cute kind of aesthetic of everything being handcrafted and these dioramas and stuff. And then it's like, okay, well, you've got to pay very close attention to these backgrounds, not just because it's kind of fun to do so, to see all the details they put in and the ways in which they realize these kinds of platform game environment tropes with household objects, as if they were actually made by somebody, but also because it's going to clue you into where there's things to find. These extra kind of collectibles while offering that typical like, well, it's easy to run to the end of a level, but how easy is it to actually find everything? So I think overall I'd go with a 7. It's I think it mostly achieves what it sets out to quite well, but it's not a home run. It does suffer as well relative to other good feel stuff from not having is it Tomita, the composer? I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as pleasant musically as and not nearly as varied. Like Yoshi's Woolly World has got this really big, varied soundtrack that's wonderful, whereas this is much more kind of confined to like riffs on one motif, and it's just not as nice. It's because I think especially with the slower pace and this more observation-based style, I think the soundtrack is actually more important here, but less effective. So that's definitely a downgrade.
Nintendo Labo Toycon 04 VR kit. So there are two releases of this.
Okay.
They put out 2 SKUs. They put out a $40 SKU and an $80 SKU. The $40 SKU came with the VR headset and a gun that you would put at the end, at like the far end of the goggles, because of course you have to have something to hold the goggles up onto your face because they do not strap, which is a bold decision. Then you have
Just go with the Virtual Boy. So just put it on a stand and then just
well,
stick
then
your
it doesn't
face
come
in
with a
there.
stand. You don't build a stand with cardboard either.
Yeah, it kind of
Uh,
breaks it, but
then you have the $80 SKU, which comes with a bird that you squeeze and it flaps while you stare into its ass and take pictures. I believe. No, sorry, you use it to fly around. You have a camera. You have an elephant that you use to paint things. I'm not joking. I'm not leaving anything out either. Those are the experiences that you get with the $80 version. You just get more cardboard, basically.
you had the odd thing where they kind of did like some sort of weird little like updates to other games. Or didn't Smash Ultimate have like a little?
Smash Ultimate lets you play some stages only.
Yeah.
Only, I think, with 2 characters. You can do it in VR, and it gives me a migraine.
Yeah.
Super Mario Odyssey has a 5-minute long VR experience attached to it, where you just like jump around a couple platforms and Mario waves at you in VR. And then you have possibly the weirdest, which is so Mario Kart doesn't get it because Mario Kart would need a much stabler frame rate for VR, and also there's a competing Mario Kart VR product out in Japan, which is made by Bandai Namco for arcades. But Breath of the Wild, you can just play that entire game in VR. Granted, it involves holding Labo up, and I don't want to. I really don't want to undersell this. Take your Switch in handheld mode, sit up at a 90-degree angle, and then hold it so that the screen is about half an inch or about 2 centimeters away from your nose. Not talking about where that's at for the Switch. Talk about where that's at for your arms that have to hold it there the entire time. Your arms hurt bad. You can put, for whatever reason, you can drop that game down to about 20 frames per second in VR. And what the VR actually is, because it's not camera movement, it's not tracking that, it's just you're seeing it in 3D, is all that it's using that for.
Yeah.
However, Breath of the Wild had an oversight in how it handled VR, and this is the best thing ever. Unlike the other games, which threw in a check to see if you were playing in handheld mode because you have to be, you can play VR Breath of the Wild in docked mode. And now, why would you ever want to do that?
Can you get a 3D TV to accept the signal?
Because it's going to output in the fisheye lens. But you can, if you route your HDMI cables exactly perfectly with a PlayStation VR, you can see the whole game in a headset and play with a Pro controller.
Yeah, well, that certainly seems better.
That is the actual way you would want to do it, and that is not part of Toycon 04 and should not be judged as such. But that is a very funny oversight that the Breath of the Wild version lets you do, and I really, really do appreciate that. There are guides out there for people who have PlayStation VRs of how to, because you don't need a Labo. All the Labo VR is basically a piece of plastic that creates the distorted fisheye lens that goes on the front of your Switch screen, so that you see the handheld screen through that, and then it's doing all the tracking through the Joy-Con motion controls.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept. Very not executed well enough because, hey, it's the Switch.
It's just frivolous.
Yes,
that's how
it's low powered. It's it's low resolution. The reason, their whole pitch was this is not being sold as a VR experience. This is being sold as an accessible way for Switch owners to see what VR is.
Yeah, just kind of like a playful way of doing it, like
Yeah,
a
but
sort of frivolous way of doing it.
like
But
they kind of gave the whole game away of what they're talking about when they put out a $40 version.
yeah, so I think I'd probably go with the 5 on this
Okay.
myself. But I can kind of see what they were going for.
Oh, I know what they were
But
going for it. It's
it,
neat,
it
but
yeah, it's got the very obvious limitations, I guess.
yes. Super Mario Maker 2.
Mm,
Rest in
this is
peace.
Yeah, well, this is tough to score because, obviously very much like the original, and there are, a number of ways in which this adds to that, and it's certainly from the point of view of me playing just like various levels online by myself, like it kind of delivers as a sequel. In various other ways it doesn't. I mean, I guess it's not as immediate for like creating levels as the Wii U game was, because you like the not having the built-in kind of stylus and stuff. But that wasn't so much of an issue for me from the point of view that I just I did make levels on the original, and there was a certain amount of fun in that, but I also found, it was just like, it's very difficult for me to make something that I feel like was worthwhile, so maybe it was better off sticking to playing other people's levels. And with all the extra elements they added here, and like the kind of the worlds functionality that got added, where it's like, okay, yeah, you could like now string together levels in a structure so that people can play them and see you iterate on ideas and concepts from level to level, rather than just in the confines of a single level, and have bosses and like progression and like a feeling of a journey through different kinds of environments and all that. So there's lots of ways in which it expanded on it, but obviously there are ways in where it came up more short. The online multiplayer was very, very problematic, to say the least. Just if anybody was, because it can't sort of fudge it like a racing game or whatever. If somebody's got a bad connection, it just tanks the whole thing and creates these extremely painful scenarios of kind of levels playing out incredibly slowly, the longest however many 100 seconds of your life, just going by. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, balancing all these things. I mean, even some of the other things, I quite like the ninja speedrun events that they had. Where it's just like, okay,
Oh yeah.
here's a particular level for everybody to focus on and speedrun, and it's been crafted for that sort of end, and the variety they had for that, and then you got little like prizes for that. Like it
Hmm.
was that was cool. I did all of those basically, and so they had things like like a Link that had, like, you didn't have the ridiculous assortment of amiibo costumes for the
Yes.
8-bit style anymore, but you did have a Link that had like bow and arrow and bombs, and like that
Yep.
actually was like a different character essentially as a power up, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, I think overall I'm going to balance it at an 8, because I still had a great deal of fun playing other people's levels. In particular, TYP Michael Cole, the host of Radio Trivia, like he like seemed to put a lot of effort into very carefully making a lot of levels, and sort of ended up collating them together into worlds. And I had a lot of fun playing those. I like fun playing random levels, even though of course inevitably you play random stuff, you are going to hit stuff that sucks. I mean, that's just
Yep.
like, but you could
That's
easily kind of gong that and move on. But it's a shame that you didn't, the Miiverse stuff being gone, and it wasn't as invited to create levels, and the multiplayer just wasn't better. Like, there's a number of ways in which it was somewhat disappointing, but I wouldn't go below an 8. It's still a
okay.
lot of fun.
Dragon Quest Builders 2.
Yep. So we talked about this earlier. So I
Yep.
think we'll give this the 8.
And we'll move on. Yep. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3: The Black Order.
Yeah, I didn't play this. It's kind of a weird callback at an E3, right? This announcement, but any kind of uh, guidance on how well it actually turned out?
I have a very fucked up perspective on this because I'm close friends with two of the designers of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1.
Oh, really?
That game is made in Madison, where I live, so yeah. Back before Raven worked on Call of Duty. And nothing but Call of Duty.
But then this was this Tecmo? Or
this was Team Ninja. The first game was Raven. The second game was Beanox? Who made Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2? Who was the developer? It was definitely not Raven. I think it was Vicarious Fish. Who's the primary? Vicarious Visions is the primary developer. Yes. And then Endspace made the Nintendo versions of 2. And then this was Team Ninja, which was very weird, especially because Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I mean, Marvel is obviously Disney, but Marvel Ultimate Alliance was an Activision thing.
Right.
For 1 and 2, and then they also re-released 1 and 2 on PS4 and Xbox One.
Right.
And then those got delisted, and then Nintendo announced Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 that they're publishing. And I'm like, the fuck is going on right here? And the answer was, everyone wants to get theirs for an exclusive Marvel game. Xbox hasn't gotten theirs yet, but like Sony's got Spider-Man.
Yes.
And Nintendo's got Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It's neat. It's a good beat 'em up. It's got a really good variety of characters. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it. Plays well. Good local multiplayer game. I think it has online, but I didn't play online. I played local.
It's. I was thinking coming into it maybe a 7 based on everything that I'd heard, and that seems consistent with what we're going with there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's. Look, if you do not like beat 'em ups and you do not like Marvel, buy another game.
Still holding out for that She-Hulk Ace Attorney game that I once mused about. Why isn't that a thing?
I don't know, but my guess is because they're about to make a really horny Disney Plus show about her.
Oh, right.
And so, probably, I don't know. My understanding is that She-Hulk show is going to push the TV-14 and try and get as close to a TVMA as they can get. Without getting to a TVMA. So, because She-Hulk is a very horny comic series. So, that's probably the answer. Also, I guess no one has pitched it. Fire Emblem
somebody needs to pitch it. It's a formula. We just need to...
3 Houses.
Yeah, I've not played it. No, I've not got around to this. Yeah, I know. It's one of these. I think.
Well, then how are you going to enjoy Fire Emblem Warriors?
3 Hopes.
Yeah, 3 Hopes. How are you going to enjoy it if you haven't played 3 Houses, Greg?
Yes, that is an interesting question. I mean, I hesitate to blame RFN, but there is an element that comes up now and again where if a game comes out and somebody kind of beats me to the punch in talking about something, it does end up somewhat affecting your process. It's just like, if it's, I don't know, 3 weeks later and it's like, I can talk about it now. Like, yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, you kind of get a bit self-conscious about that, and then
it's very good.
This stuff sort of slips down the list, but yeah, it definitely sounded like from everything I've heard, really, that it would be something I'd enjoy. So it's a bit silly that I've not got around to it, but I don't think that's one of the games in the sale. If that had the 30% off, that would be the impetus to because again, it wouldn't get cheaper than that. It's
not going to get cheaper. You
may as well just go for it there. But
you might find a discount on a physical somewhere, especially. I'm assuming that there will be a retailer reorder of inventory to precede 3 Hopes.
Yes, and so it very much it's what I took from the very immediately brisk kind of thing at the beginning with 3 Hopes is that this is just the sort of Age of Calamity treatment for 3. It's just like, well, this is like the same it's riffing on that story in the same way that Age of Calamity riffs on Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
Like, so it really, you do need to have played it to enjoy that context, don't you? Like, it
100%.
Really...
And they're doing that because Three Houses sold a stupid number of copies.
Yeah, it's similar in that, you know, obviously, like, well, everybody played Breath of the Wild, right? Well, yeah, when it sold as many as it did, you could kind of make that assumption.
Yes, and so this is that assumption, is that yes, this is not going to be a loosey goosey pulling from everywhere in the Fire Emblem series. This is going to be, we're probably going to pull the 15 to 20 most memorable characters out of Three Houses and let you play them.
And again, Age of Calamity, using that approach, sold as well as a Warriors game has, right?
Yep.
Like, it's not a terrible shock that they would sort of apply that formula to something else and sort of go again. But I think with this, it's going to be another one of those where I'm going to give an 8, even though I think it's not out of the question. If I had played it, it could be maybe get to the 9, but it's as high as I'm kind of willing to go based on A, what I've heard, but B, not having played it.
All right. How do you feel about being a cop and enslaving people with chains as you yell at them?
Pokemon, like, things.
Not quite Pokemon. Things that are sentient and, you know, talk and are humanoid. And I know there are a lot of Pokemon that do that, but, like, that are just begging in agony for you to release them while you put physical chains on them as a cop and say, no, you fight for me until I say otherwise.
It's a strange mix, this one, of,
when I fucking realized that that's what that game was, which was like a trailer and a half in, I was like, what the fuck are they making? And
we are talking about Platinum. They don't mind, the sort of bondage imagery is not something they've shied away from in the past. But
it's different when you're a cop.
It is different. This whole thing is a bit different for them in the sense that you've got because it's kind of like trying to, I think, that kind of way more emphasis on like world building and, you know, like, okay, than your typical kind of Platinum character action game. You know, you've got this sort of base of operations, and I've said it when I talked about it on RFN because I did have it, I did play it. You know, that it sort of reminded me a bit of Xenoblade X, which obviously I just recently said this about Pokemon as well, but trust me, not everything reminds me of Xenoblade X.
You sure?
But in the sense that it's like, okay, you're kind of this like outpost in a way against like all these encroaching like hostile kind of things, and you know, you're trying to kind of like maintain like the functioning of your kind of settlement as where all this crazy shit's going on. Like there's definitely some of that, and just like talking to NPCs and all this, like more than you would have expect from like your typical kind of Platinum game that I've played at this point anyway. Obviously there's many of theirs that I have not, so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I think the combat system was a little bit different, you know, with these different like partners that are chained to you, and so it was like less immediate than like a Bayonetta, but it kind of gave it somewhat different kind of flavor, and it had like more stuff to kind of level up and things like in more RPGs. So, I mean, obviously there's always upgrades and things in Platinum games. You earn currency and you spend it on unlocking moves or improving things, but just felt like taking it in a more RPG direction, more kind of quest type stuff, all this sort of stuff. So kind of felt like, you know, trying to expand beyond, you know, the kind of limitations of kind of linear, quite compact, condensed experience of their kind of character action games into something that maybe, you know, could last longer and more people might buy full price on that kind of sort of metric, and sadly seems to be like really kind of a big deal for games. You know, it's just that, well, if something's like great but short, it's just like people won't buy it or it certainly won't buy it full price. So kind of felt like a certain amount of self-consciousness there, but I think it was reasonably effective at what it did. But they ended up with a certain amount of like samey kind of content, like going around those kind of whatever. I forget a lot of the details of the fiction now, but where you're in those sort of weird like other dimensional play, it's kind of like Tron or whatever. Like just a lot of stuff in those sorts of environments, kind of doing similar sorts of things. I guess it's a little bit like some of the things in Bayonetta where you get warped off to the whatever it is. I forget. Like it's very polysyllabic. That dimension or like layer of heaven where you just like fight enemies in a room or whatever. I mean, it's had precedent in Platinum stuff, but it felt like it took it to a bigger proportion of the core experience of this. So overall, it's tough to balance all these things up. I think 7 would be where I'd go with it. It was pretty good. I liked it.
Okay. Daemon Ex Machina.
Did not get to this. Obviously, I mean, James talked about it.
It was free on PC a couple weeks ago.
Was it?
Epic Games gave it away.
There was a demo, so I think I toyed around with the demo at one point. But yeah, it seemed to be a little bit lukewarm response to this.
Right.
Technically, maybe didn't hold together that well, but not without merit either. Any kind of guidance on this?
Not really. It's fine.
Maybe a 5.
Sure. Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
Yeah, well, I've always said with Link's Awakening, having played it properly for the first time on Virtual Console, the DX version, that it kind of like there was just a kind of no frills remake to be had with this, because it's fundamentally a very good game. And the biggest thing you need to kind of address is just the fact that you only had 2 action buttons on the Game Boy, and so switching among your items was a real problem, because it's especially when it's like, well, you're pretty much always going to want your sword, right? And then once you introduce anything else, well, that's like that you're kind of covered at that point. You've used everything, so it was always there to be had, I felt. And of course eventually we got it with this, where it's like, now you could just assign items to more things, and it doesn't feel as kind of claustrophobic with the view and everything, but it's a very, very faithful remake, and with a cute aesthetic, and the remixes of the music with the kind of instruments and stuff is very effective. So it doesn't get many, and I don't think you particularly needed to reinvent anything. It certainly doesn't get any points for doing anything like that. But for the most part, it was just a kind of solid realization of something that I thought could be quite good for a long time. So I'd go with an 8. No.
Sorry, I said the whole name out loud in one breath and then did not unmute. Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition.
Yeah, well, so definitely heard plenty about this. Guillaume spent plenty of time playing it and very much enjoyed it. And seeing all the reviews and all that, it certainly seems like a very strong kind of edition of the game. Really, had to be on Switch, this game, at some point, because of just the sheer popularity of Switch in Japan. The PS4 is unpopular or anything, but it's very much a kind of dedicated home console is always going to be kind of second fiddle to the most popular device that's at least portable capable in the case of Switch. So it was bound to happen, and it seems like they brought it over pretty well. But I have not played it, so I'm not. I think it's going to be another one of those where it caps out at 8. Where even though it certainly from some of the accounts of how much people have enjoyed it and all that, it certainly sounds like it could be worth more. But the one thing that does kind of add to any hesitation on it is just the intimidation factor of the length. Like,
it is exhaustingly long.
Yeah, I have talked about this before, like we played Dragon Quest 7 and stuff, where it's just like, well, I didn't regret the purchase at all, having got, like 40, 50 hours of pretty solid entertainment out of it. But there is something a little bit unfulfilling about not feeling like you can kind of keep having fun and actually see the resolution
Yeah.
of all that stuff. And I do fear, something similar would happen with this, but. So yeah, I don't think I could go above 8, but it seems well worth that at least.
Ring Fit Adventure.
Again, heard plenty of good accounts of this. I've not used it myself, but seems like it's kind of pretty delivered pretty effectively on what Nintendo would have envisioned for it. So I think that might be another 8.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah, so I like this a lot. I haven't enjoyed the other Luigi's Mansion games, but it's always kind of like, well, the first one is a bit of a sketch of a game. It's a launch title. It's flashy, but the core mechanics are kind of fun. But they didn't really have a kind of particularly substantial kind of design to exploit all those mechanics, and even in its short running time there's a little bit of like treading water and padding. And then the second one we kind of get like, oh well, we've got, it's not, we're not just rushing it out for launch or whatever, but we've got like all these mansions and these missions that take a long time, and these kind of like jewels that are only in certain instances of the mansions and stuff. It just felt like it was a bit overblown, and this pretty much hit the happy medium where it's like, no, well, we've got bigger scale than the first one, more mechanics, more sophistication, but not as much what felt to me anyway with the second one like kind of bloat that there was in that. And it obviously from a graphical fidelity point of view, it's the best the Luigi's Mansion game has looked. It's a very strong taking that aesthetic into HD and all the personality and style that they got out of it. So yeah, I think I don't know whether I'd quite go to a 9, but it's well worth an 8 as well.
Sounds good. Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield with DLC.
Yeah, so I had Shield. I did not play the DLC, which again it's another victim of like, I've played a lot of this, I've enjoyed it, I don't know whether I need more right now, and then you don't get around to it. But it sounded interesting because basically, this, as I was saying on RFN recently with the Legends, it seemed like it was a little bit of a kind of rough draft in the particular context of the wild area in the game. Like, it's like, okay, we haven't really fully worked this out yet, but it's there. Whereas the DLC kind of seemed like it was like, yeah, well, no, we've more fully kind of got it down, because wasn't that the armor, the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, was it those two? Like, they were both just like entire wild areas, basically.
Yes, they were completely wild areas. Yes, the first being about agile style versus, rapid strike style versus strong strike style, and then Crown Tundra being largely just about a bunch of legendaries. Right. And both of them also introduced a ton of Pokemon that weren't in base Sword and Shield, made them catchable, and obviously you didn't have to have the DLC to have them in the game, but you had to have the DLC to catch them.
Yeah. So it's I mean, generally speaking, I quite enjoyed it, I'd say. The base game, what I did play of it, Sobble was my starter, and then kind of going through the whole, like, I did like the fact that with the region based on Britain, that it was just like all about playing in soccer stadiums. That seemed sort of appropriate, and also that a character, not for the first time, patterned that Nintendo, or something connected to Nintendo, had patterned on David Beckham, was a significant character in the game. After, I believe, the other deleter was also based on David Beckham for some reason. That's a lot harder to rationalize, I've got to say, the turncoat in a like colonial marines kind of brigade is based on David Beckham is a lot harder than Pokemon comes to England, but yeah, I think overall I'd go it's one of the closer windows I've had like with playing Pokemon games. It's like a lot of them there's been quite a lot of years between games, but this wasn't that long after I played Moon, so like basically 3 years. So I don't know whether it wasn't felt as fresh as like when I played Moon. So I think I'd go to a 7 as opposed to an 8 with that, but I still thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. Tetris 99.
Yeah, I mean I have access to this, but I never really played it very much. But it seems like pretty like it caught on pretty well. So I can only imagine at this point, especially where it's been going a while, that I would just I'd quite like Tetris, but I'm rubbish at it. So I can imagine if you tried to play it now, like the idea of being able to accomplish anything in it is probably a distant dream. So I doubt it's something I'm going to get into, even though I have ongoing access to it. But I think maybe a 7 for that as well.
Makes sense. Box Boy plus Box Girl. I'm sure you have a lot of opinions on this one.
Yeah, still I've not got around to one of these games, which
you knew this was coming. You knew this was coming like a month ago. You could have played it in the last month.
I could have done. It's entirely true. But yeah, it's probably gonna stay at a 7 like the other Box Boy games. Okay. But this would be the one, I guess, at this point if I were gonna try the series that I would go to.
Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer, featuring The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, I've not played Necrodancer or this.
What? Oh my gosh!
No. Again, I've heard other people talking about it.
Have you heard the soundtrack?
Yeah. I've definitely heard some of that. So it seems quite appealing, but I've not got around to it. So it's just a question of, because I have a pretty good affinity for like rhythm or heavily music driven things. So yeah, it certainly seems like something I should have got to before. But of course, especially once you get to 19, there's just so much stuff to play on Switch.
Yeah.
It is, especially for me, is sort of the bandwidth for playing it has generally been declining as this, as history goes on. You more and more things that are just like, that makes a lot of sense for me to have played, but I haven't done it. So yeah, any guidance on this one?
Yeah, it's really, really fucking good, dude. It's exactly what I wanted, and yes, to a certain extent, it is a scan, but it feels really, really good. It is, the sprite work is very good. The soundtrack is great. If you get the DLC, there's like 3 alternate soundtracks also. So there's like 4 soundtracks to this game. I am always, GX saying it might have slightly too much content. There's so much that you can do in this. There's, the main game, there's also like daily seed runs. There's a bunch of modifiers you can turn on and off to customize your playthrough. I'm tickled by concepts like Wiz-Robo. The Wiz-Robo-oboist. Yeah. I'm very, very tickled by that. No, I know that you don't like to go ultra high unless you played the game, but like I would give this a 9. So it's very, very good.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think I will stick with the 8 on that, but yeah, it's a shame I haven't got to that. It's kind of silly, really, but it's just one of those. I can't even. It's not even that long ago. But I can't fully account for it.
It came out like, I don't know, 6 months before quarantine.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's everything. It feels farther away than it is. Well, all this stuff does.
Super Kirby Clash, which is the free-to-play 4-player boss rush brawler. Kind of like Monster Hunter-y.
And this is the more of the sort of the apples and everything.
Yeah, this is all that.
Yeah, so I think I might go with a 5 on that. It's between a 5 and a 6, but I'll go with a 5.
What about the stretchers?
Yeah, that's on sale at the moment. But I don't remember too much about the kind of
Yeah, if
the
you aren't
substance
gonna
of it.
play with someone else, you may as well not.
Yeah, it's very kind of co-op centric, but
It's a co-op physics funny game because Nintendo didn't have one of those. Don't worry,
yeah.
there's gonna be another one in a few weeks later with Good Job. But like
Yeah.
they greenlit both. They both came out basically simultaneously. But end of one year, start of the next. But
Yeah.
Good Job got noticed because it got promoted in a direct. The Stretchers did not get promoted. It just kind of got dropped out there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, yeah, okay, this is a tough. I've got so little to go on and so little prospect to play it in the future, for that matter. But is it maybe a 6 or a 7? I'm thinking,
Yeah,
but
6 sounds right.
yeah, I've got with the 6.
What? What about the 10th Dr. Mario game? Dr. Mario World. The game where the pills go up and it's bad?
That's
And
a
it's
selling point.
and it is microtransactions to hell and back.
Yeah, I mean, generally, because I do quite like, or have quite enjoyed Dr. Mario when I played it. We've probably gone, reasonable scores for most of these, but with this,
Like
I'm inclined against it more.
if you're me, and if I'm not Nintendo, so if you ask me, what do we want to do for a mobile Dr. Mario? I'm like, okay, you want to take the touch controlled Virus Buster minigame
Yeah.
and make a high score challenge. I don't fucking know. Like, find a wrapper around that, but like, I'm sure you'll microtransaction it up and it'll be gross and whatever. But even before that, for core gameplay, you already have touch-based Dr. Mario.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, they already
Nah,
did it.
fuck it. We're gonna do something completely different and call it Dr. Mario.
And it was, like brain training in '05 or whatever. Is that
Yeah, huh?
that's as far back as it goes? So yeah,
Yeah, there's been
it's
there's 14 years of historical record of how to make a touch control Dr. Mario.
it kind of feels like reinventing the wheel,
Anyways,
kind of
you can't
scenario.
go play this one anymore because it was bad I believe operationally it cost more money than it was bringing in.
Yes, so
So you
it got
cannot play it anymore.
like a rogue Cylon. It got boxed, and I'm gonna go 4 on
Yeah,
that.
that's about as high as I'd go. Mario Kart Tour. You want to talk about the most aggressively monetized game other this and Animal Crossing are pretty tied. It's their most popular franchises that they want to harass you at. And it's their
Yeah,
fucking core games like Fire Emblem and Dragalia that they're like, we're just happy you're here. Whereas like
kind of.
Mario Kart, like one of the first things it does as soon as it's done downloading content is you should buy it. You should take a trial, an auto renewing trial for our paid subscription. What does it get you?
It's
Does it get me characters? No.
It's,
No, it
it's
doesn't.
odd. It is odd because on the one hand, they seem to have this real sensitivity with the siloing thing that we talked about,
Yes.
with the messaging and everything. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, yeah, if you're gonna I mean, that subscription stuff that you talked about with Animal Crossing last week, or I think it was last week.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel like it comes from the same place. But I
No, it
guess
doesn't.
maybe that's why it needs to be siloed, because that's some like toxic waste shit. I mean,
Yeah. But like, yeah, Mario Kart Tour is so. I had, especially at launch, mixed feelings about the controls. It is basically swipe to drift,
right.
and like tap for items and like stuff like that. Like you're moving side to side, but like it's fine. The controls are fine. The biggest selling point was that it was Mario Kart on your phone that had HD versions of old tracks that hadn't been HD'd, and it had new tracks, and that was the big thing. It took a long time for them to add PvP,
Right.
which feels like, what the fuck are you doing? It's Mario Kart
It's pretty
that has to be
central.
connected to the internet. You have to be connected to the internet, and it's Mario Kart. How is there not Mario Kart Versus? That got added months later. But yeah, it's the ways to get characters are either paying for very expensive bundles, like the aforementioned currently on sale $40 for Donkey Kong, or for Diddy Kong.
Oh, even worse.
Yes, $40 for Diddy Kong plus some premium currency, or you gotcha, at which point you are not even guaranteed a character.
And this is like this is the full-on mobile, like, you know, Mario wearing a kimono is a separate character.
Mario wearing a kimono is separate, 100%. They just announced. So what they do is they do them in seasons, and the seasons are based on real-world cities. They just announced the Los Angeles tour, which is headlined. Where is this fucking thing? I couldn't believe it, so I showed all my coworkers who live in Los Angeles the trailer. And was like, this is it. It is, what's the name? Charging Chuck wearing a football helmet. Driving,
the Super Bowl's in LA, so yeah.
Driving a hamburger with French fries and a soda for a cart. Accompanied by Mario in the white and red pinstripe outfit and Luigi in the green and white pinstripe outfit. Those are their Los Angeles tour characters.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it sounds like something Nintendo would have come up with for, like, you know, like joining in with American nationalism in the early 90s. And then you said yes, and here's these characters, you know, the costumes they had from NES Open Tournament
100%.
Golf from the early 90s. So,
it's hilarious. Yeah, like, they're taking a bunch of this shit and just throwing it into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with the DLC, so that you can get, for example, your Tokyo. The only thing more American is an unvaccinated Waluigi with a "Stop the Steal" sign. Jesus Christ. But yes, the Mario Kart tour tracks are in just track layout and design, they're not great. They're better than the ones Bandai Namco makes for the arcade. But which, if you've played those arcade cabinets, which I have, that's not saying that much.
Yeah, I did play one Mario Kart arcade on one occasion. I just couldn't do it at all. I was like trying to play it like Mario Kart, and completely, it was probably worse than if I'd never played Mario Kart. Like it didn't.
The arcade cabinets are fucked up in like that. Yeah, they just do not function the same way. They function like someone who barely plays them. Plays Mario Kart, but like knows the brand, has like played it at like played it in college over some drinks with friends. Like they'll be able to get it. But, like, yeah, no. Anyways, yes, again, like, it's HD, it's pretty, because it's on phones, and phones are more powerful than the Switch. So, in a fucked up way, like, Dragalia Lost performs better on my phone than it probably would on the Switch, which is hilarious. And, yeah, they're gonna bring all the major new tracks over, like, the most popular ones. They're starting with the Tokyo Tour track, but, like, yeah, what a weird fucking thing. And this is their most recent mobile game.
Yeah, and of course it was much, you know, it was like, well, it took a long time. It was talking about it for a long time, and it's like, okay, and then it's like,
and there was there was like a closed alpha, like somewhat public, but like closed alpha test or something for Android that like footage leaked out of, and everyone was like, yeah, I don't know what I expected. That just looks like Mario Kart.
It took a long time for it to materialize, and when it did, it wasn't like anything that was that obvious. Like, no, that's pretty much what you would have expected it to be. It's sort of the reaction.
Said it was Mario Kart on phones. It's Nintendo, so it's gonna be portrait mode. It's gonna be vertical. It's probably gonna be one hand playable. That only leaves you with so many creative options.
Yeah. It just kind of sounds like they've, you know, executed pretty much what you'd expect, not much more or less, and I guess it's, you know, not massively successful, but it's successful enough to keep.
It's their third most financially successful game.
to keep operating it unlike a
Which
Dr. Mario where
yes.
you got to box the thing.
Which begs the question, why the fuck is Dragalia Lost still up? If this is their third highest grossing game. If this game came out in 2019 and it is to date grossed more than Dragalia Lost, a game that has a much higher budget than Mario Kart Tour. The question is, hey, wait a second. Why is Dragalia Lost... I love that Dragalia Lost is still up. I will be sad when it goes away. It should probably go away if you're actually doing bean counting correctly.
Yeah, I guess something about how those costs are spread out or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe Side Games is inhaling 50% of the cost. If they are, holy shit. I don't know who's losing in that deal. Side Games gets to make the game they want, or Nintendo's throwing good money after bad. I don't know. But anyways, Pikmin Bloom did come out in 2021, but publisher of record on that is Niantic and not Nintendo, so that does not count.
Yeah,
no. Because
no.
You're the first person to do 2021 ranking, so I found that one out. I was like, is Mario Kart Tour really the last mobile game? Oh no, Pikmin Bloom just came out. Oh shit, not by Nintendo, it didn't.
Yeah, no, so it's tough to score obviously without having played it myself, and you just kind of go by what's been said about it, and especially because it's one of these things where, as we've already sort of covered some of the kind of key milestones, it's quite a different game, in terms of where in 2019 than it is today.
Sure is.
But I think I'm just going to go with a 6. It's a kind of a non-committal score, but
6.95.
Oh wow!
First of all, it's higher than 2018.
Yeah, I think it's because we got fewer titles
yes,
again.
Yes, it was 30 titles down to 23 titles, and there wasn't even a 4 this time. Or there was a 4, but that was Dr. Mario World. There's only one 4, a lot of 8s. A ton of 8s this year.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And then
some strong stuff.
I think there's a really good chance next week's the final week, dude.
Oh, it really should be, considering we've got pandemic.
Yes, we've got 19 in 2020, we got 17 in 2021, and we just knocked out almost all of 2018 and all of 2019 in one stream. Given
that we've got the utter, the 3DS is completely and utterly behind us, and we've got the onset of pandemic time. Yep. It's very much, kind of expedited from here.
And there's not going to be. Seren explains this mobile game for 10 minutes because there's no mobile games. So.
No, with that too, exactly, as well as the 3DS. Weirdly, mobile's behind us as well. That's really weird.
Yes, everyone's favorite retro platform, cell phones.
Yes, it's so passé, isn't it? It's all very much a product of the past. That mobile platform. So that's this is going to be the end of an era unto itself.
Yeah, but, it looks like this was a 16-part stream.
Yeah, well, you'd like to think I could have got there quicker, but equally...
I mean, do you want at the end, I think I might give you the raw hour count.
Yeah, well, it's going to be over 30, right?
It's going to be over 30 hours.
Yeah.
Neil's was 9 3/4 hours.
9 3/4.
And James was James was about 12.
Still, I don't know how seriously they took the exercise. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's the thing. And the James one especially was drawn out a lot by both of us looking at what the fuck is that NES game?
Yeah, sure.
Like, by the time I did this, I know what all the Game & Watch and NES games were, but like...
The early going, would definitely be an issue there, the first... And that's the thing, I mean, God knows how completely inadequate or just, like, torturous it would have been if I didn't have someone with your knowledge base.
I mean... I really should just make a clip and upload it to Twitter of the I'm sorry, does that say Beauty and the Beast, a board game adventure for Game Boy Color? Like the first time. I was like, I have never heard of that.
No, well, I just yes, it's one thing for it to exist at all, but for it to qualify for this
Hell
exercise, is
yeah,
just sort of
Nintendo put that one out.
when you get that extra layer of recognition to that fact.
Yes,
Is
like
where it gets
everything that
really
is
fun.
in this exercise is notable for one reason or another. Alright, it's gonna do it for this stream. Thank you. We'll be back again next week with the grand finale.
The finale, yes. We'll see
Bye,
then.
everyone.